Well, now to another a major story rather, dominating the political landscape of America. The Supreme Court appears to be favoring Donald Trump in a historic case that could upend the presidential election. It involves Colorado banning him from the ballot over his role in the January 6th attack. Lawyers representing the state cite the 14th Amendment. It says no person who took an oath as an officer of the United States shall hold office if they engaged in insurrection or rebellion. The justices must now decide whether all of this justifies removing him from a state's presidential ballot. So campaign reporter Katrina Kaufman is joining us now with a little more analysis. I'm sure you listened to the arguments yesterday. Katrina, just take us inside the courtroom. What stood out to you about yesterday's arguments and the questions the justices were asking?
Hi, Anne-Marie. So, yes, I was in the courtroom yesterday for these arguments, and I think one thing that was very striking was that, as opposed to being at odds with each other, the justices really seemed to be in conversation. And a key issue that they were really worried about was allowing one state to determine the presidential ballot for the entire nation and the precedent that that could set if they let Colorado remove Trump from the ballot, and then that could impact the rest of the country. Another thing that I thought was actually striking was how little the idea of insurrection came up, because this is really a key issue in Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, which you just read, which is, did President Trump engage in insurrection, even the idea of what is an insurrection? And that was talked about very little during this discussion. And I think we actually have one moment that we can play, though.
Your reply brief says that it wasn't because, I think you say, it did not involve an organized attempt to overthrow the government. So
that's one of many reasons. But for an insurrection, there needs to be an organized, concerted effort to overthrow the government of the United States through violence. And
so the point is that a chaotic effort to overthrow the government is not an insurrection?
No, we didn't concede that it's an effort to overthrow the government either, Justice Jackson. Right? None of these criteria were met. This was a riot. It was not an insurrection. The events were shameful, criminal, violent, all of those things, but it did not qualify as insurrection, as that term is used in Section 3.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no. So, I mean, one thing that's interesting about that is he's clearly trying to minimize what happened and call it a riot, not an insurrection. But there was another moment in the discussion that I thought was quite interesting when Trump's own lawyer actually admitted that as a matter of public policy, to allow an insurrectionist to serve as president, that was just something that they couldn't square. Basically, in this clause, it says, that lower-level officers, if they've been insurrectionists, can't serve. You can't serve in the Senate, but the presidency isn't discussed. And even Trump's team couldn't make this argument that, that it makes sense that you can serve in a lower-level office if you've been an insurrectionist, but you cannot serve in a lower-level office, but you can, in fact, serve as president. And the truth is that Section 3 of the 14th Amendment was created to protect the country from insurrectionists serving office.
Yeah, there was a lot of debate about the word, an officer of the United States versus an office of the United States, because the presidency is often referred to in the Constitution as an office, not an officer. And the thing about this particular section is that it's really never been tested. As I understand it, you can probably shed a little light on it, but in the past, anytime they sort of dealt with these sort of issues, individuals running who could have participated were given a pass, right? They were given a sort of immunity. And so this is the first time that this clause would be actually tested in real life.
You're absolutely right. This is a case of first impression. This is the first time that the Supreme Court is going to be weighing in on the meaning of Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. And like President Trump's other cases, there are just always novel legal issues. And I think another thing to bring up is that Trump is really unique. He is a rare president. I think the only other one is George Washington, who didn't previously serve public office. So there are aspects of Section 3 where, you have to have taken a certain type of oath to support the Constitution. They say Trump didn't take that oath, but basically everyone else who's ever served as president did, because they served in another capacity in the government. So that is another unprecedented aspect of this as well.
Oh, that is fascinating. Katrina, thank you very much.